Years of Sister Wives viewers have seen the Browns' tangled family dynamics play out on television. The blow-ups, the makeups, the expansions and expansions of property, and the perpetual tension among wives and husbands. But behind the cameras, a more subdued but intense drama was brewing. A drama of financial manipulation, deception, and backstabbing that nobody on the outside really knew about. Until now, it started with a standard court hearing. Meri Brown, the quiet fighter who had been with us all these years, had finally reached her limit. The drama, the imbalances, the deception, it was all too much for her. She wasn't just seeking justice for herself, she was demanding transparency from Kody Brown, the patriarch who had long claimed to act in the family's best interests. According to sources close to the family, Meri's legal team requested detailed financial records from the Brown family's main holding entity. At first, the documents were sparse, incomplete, and highly suspicious. Mortgages, property taxes, vehicle payments, all of it accounted for. But there was something missing: the discretionary bonuses, the appearance fees, and the network incentives. The very funds that could account for the seeming contradictions in Kody's testimony could not be found. And then came the whistleblower, an erstwhile mid-level accountant for TLC's parent company, who had managed the Browns' finances for years, stepped forth under cover of anonymity. All the money wasn't going into the family account, the insider disclosed. There were payments coming directly to Kody and nobody else. What came next would stun the family, the viewers, and the entire reality television universe. This is the tale of deception, courtroom antics, and financial dishonesty that resulted in Meri Brown demolishing Kody in court as the youngest wife, Robyn, sobbed as the judge gave a verdict nobody expected. The premise of the case was straightforward, but heart-wrenching. For years, the Browns assumed that all profits from sister wives went into a big communal pot that benefited the whole family. Both the public and the wives were informed that this shared pot was untouchable. Every purchase, every real estate acquisition, every family choice controlled collectively. However, from insider files, it is said that Kody had allegedly diverted hundreds of thousands of dollars into off-the-books accounts, with Robyn kept in the loop, but the other wives in the dark. What was framed as prudent financial management was, in reality, a complex web of secrecy and control meticulously orchestrated by Kody himself. And now, the courtroom was about to expose it all. The tension inside the courtroom was palpable. Fans at home could only imagine the stifling silence as Meri's attorney prepared to reveal the evidence. Every ledger, every wire transfer, every memo had been scrutinized, verified, and cross-checked. The objective to show that Kody's personal gain was made at the expense of the other wives, and that the patriarch's appeals of poverty were mere fiction. The courtroom doors swung open early that morning, and tension hung in the air. Reporters scrambled for position, cameras snapped, and all seats appeared to be occupied by people willing to see what might be one of the most explosive moments in Sister Wives history. Meri went in first. Her demeanor was self-assured, but her eyes revealed the heaviness of what she was about to say. She had worked for months amassing every piece of evidence, interviewing accountants, and studying Kody's spending patterns. This wasn't about numbers, this was about years of lying. Kody came next, surrounded by his lawyers. His face was calm, but those who know him say the serene face barely hid a profound anxiety. He had been criticized before, but not on the level of what was soon to come. And then there was Robyn. She had been faithful to Kody, aware of some financial actions, but believing they were innocuous. Today, she would learn the extent of the mismanagement. Her hands already shook a little as she held her notes, not knowing what revelation was to follow. The judge struck the gavel and called the court to attention, and the room was silent. Meri's attorney stepped forward, holding a thick folder of meticulously organized evidence. "Your Honor," the attorney began, "we are here to address a matter that has affected not just one member of this family, but all of them. For years, Kody Brown has operated a system of monetary control that has intentionally kept his wives out, made himself wealthy, and lied to the public, his family, and this court." The room changed, whispers flew like wildfire. Cameras caught every movement. Kody shifted forward slightly, a flash of worry crossing his face. Robyn's fingers clamped around the bench in tight fists. The first item of evidence was a set of bank statements. At first glance, they seemed ordinary. Routine deposits, withdrawals, and transfers. But as the attorney highlighted the discrepancies, the tension grew. Wire transfers labeled as family expenses were actually payments to accounts controlled exclusively by Kody. Luxury purchases, vacation costs, even private loans, all had been hidden from the collective family accounts. This, Meri's attorney said, pointing to the ledger, is not mismanagement, this is intentional fraud. The room was shocked instantaneously. Robyn had a visible intake of breath. She saw for the first time the financial picture as a whole. Kody hadn't simply spent the money, he'd defrauded the system for his own use. And then there was the eyewitness testimony that would rock the room to its very foundation. A one-time accountant who had taken care of some of the family's finances for years testified. "I was told to keep some of the transactions on the down low," the witness admitted. "I didn't know why then, but now it is obvious that these were purposeful misdirections of money that should have gone to all wives equally." All eyes in the courtroom turned toward Kody. His jaw clenched. Robyn paled, and Meri, standing firm with resolute calm, finally began to taste the vindication she had been pursuing for so long. This was only the tip of the iceberg. The courtroom was set to deconstruct Kody's entire financial empire, brick by brick. As the proceedings in the courtroom went on, the air grew heavier with tension. The next batch of evidence was shown, a month-by-month timeline of Kody's transactions for the last 5 years. It was thorough, pointing out payments for individual indulgences, personal investments, and even vacations touted as family retreats that, in actuality, were lavish getaways taken virtually exclusively by Kody. Robyn's expression spoke volumes before anyone else was even able to utter a word. Lips parted and widened in shock. She trusted Kody, believing that his monetary choices were the best decision for the family as a whole. But the figures on those papers were a far grimmer tale. The attorney addressed the judge. "Your Honor, these papers clearly indicate a pattern of misappropriation. Kody Brown has deposited hundreds of thousands of dollars into personal accounts, unbeknownst to, and without the consent of, his wives. This is not just bad management. It is intentional deceit." Kody had his mouth open to defend himself, but the facts spoke for themselves. Each attempted explanation appeared to break down under the eagle eye of the carefully laid-out paperwork. The ledger after ledger created a pattern that could not be denied. And then came the most stunning revelation. A whistleblower, someone who had worked most closely with Kody on family finances, took the stand. "I have never seen anything like this in my career," the witness declared assertively. Transactions were knowingly concealed. Money intended for the family was channeled into private accounts, and all attempts to bring it up were met with intimidation or disregard. Robyn's hands trembled in her notes. The truth struck her hard. Kody had been controlling not only the funds, but the information, keeping everybody in the dark and creating a private financial empire in the process. The background noise in the courtroom heightened. Cameras caught every expression. Robyn's shock, Kody's tense calm, and Meri's firm, unflinching stare. This was not merely a legal contest, it was a test of truth long in coming. Meri's lawyer stepped forward to the judge a third time. "Your Honor, in light of the magnitude of the mismanagement and the intentional withholding of funds, we ask that there be full restitution for all parties involved. This is not a choice, it is a choice of justice." Robyn, typically in control in public, was finally unable to hold in her feelings. A soft sob spilled out, and she hung her head, the heaviness of the truth bearing down as never before. Even she had not known the full extent of Kody's deceit. For Meri, the time was bitter sweet. Vindication was within reach, but agony at the sight of her family broken, and Robyn weeping was almost too much to bear. But she knew that revealing the truth was the way out. The judge leaned forward, eyes sweeping the courtroom, drinking in every aspect, every response. The gavel was poised to deliver a verdict that would forever alter the lives of the Brown family. The courtroom was charged with tension. The judge's gaze swept across the room, pausing briefly on each wife, lingering for a fraction longer on Robyn, whose composure had now completely cracked. The attorneys began the next phase, direct confrontation. Meri's lawyer, papers in hand, stepped forward with a determined look. "Kody Brown," she began, voice steady but firm, You have repeatedly claimed that all financial decisions were for the good of the family, but these documents, and the testimony of witnesses, reveal that you put self-interest above the very people you swore to serve. How do you explain that? Kody squirmed in his seat, a flicker of embarrassment passing over his face. He opened his mouth, then closed it, as if considering which lie would be less injurious, but each word sounded off-peak, each explanation tenuous and unlikely. Robyn, sitting next to him, could no longer hide her inner turmoil. The tears she had struggled to suppress ran down her face, betraying the shock and betrayal she felt. For the first time, she finally understood the full extent of Kody's manipulations. Not only financially, but emotionally. The witness, a previous financial consultant, was brought back into court to testify under cross-examination. The transfers weren't errors, the consultant announced, pounding his hand on the table. Each transaction was deliberate. Each account is dishonestly titled. Kody knew precisely what he was doing, and still he hoped the family would be blind. Gasps rang out in the courtroom. Cameras caught the shaking hands of Robyn and the steady, piercing glare of Meri at Kody. The tension was palpable, like the room itself was holding its breath. Then came the pivotal moment. Meri's attorney presented a series of screenshots and internal emails. "Here, Your Honor," she said, handing the judge the evidence. "We have direct communication from Kody to Robyn and others, clearly outlining plans to redirect family funds. These are not suggestions, they are orders." Robyn buried her face in her hands. Her whole world, the family life she had created with Kody, was shattering before her very eyes. All those years she had trusted him blindly, thinking every move was for the good of the family. And now it was excruciatingly evident that she had been a pawn in a carefully played out plan. The judge leaned forward, speaking in a low tone but exuding an unmistakable command. "Mr. Brown," he stated, "these acts cannot be ignored. The proof given is unequivocal, detailed, and irrefutable. You have a responsibility to your family, and the court will see that it is fulfilled." The room fell quiet. Even Kody, who had long pretended to be in control, appeared visibly disturbed. Robyn's weeping was a soft hum, mingled with the softly muttered musings of bystanders. This was no longer a courtroom hearing. It was a reckoning. Meri, calm but determined, was aware that what happened in the next few minutes would seal the fate of justice. The stage was now set for the verdict that not only would reveal the truth, but also reshape the dynamics of the Brown family forever. The courtroom descended into anxious silence as the judge signaled the presentation of the next piece of evidence. A massive screen rolled into position, showing columns of bank statements, invoices, and carefully documented transfers. The amounts were mined. Boggling Meri's lawyer moved forward. "Your Honor, we have done the math on the total amount of embezzlement perpetrated by Kody Brown. The numbers are self-explanatory. More than $900,000 in family funds have been used for personal expenses, funneled through a web of shell accounts and sham investments." A collective gasp coursed through the gallery. Robyn's hands flew to her face, her knees shaking beneath the burden of the news. Even the reporters from the courtroom exchanged wide-eyed looks. Kody fidgeted in his seat, attempting to compose himself. But it was evident he was trapped. His normal demeanor of quiet authority had disappeared, to be replaced with defensiveness and incredulity. The lawyer went on, clicking slide after slide. "Copies of the emails, text messages, and banking reports that reveal intentional efforts to keep these transactions from the other wives. Every cent accounts for itself, and every move leads back to Mr. Brown." Robyn's tears streamed unabashedly now. She had unwittingly been party to the money mismanagement, believing Kody's excuses unquestioningly. It was a crushing revelation of the extent of his dishonesty. The judge narrowed her eyes, leaning forward. "Mr. Brown, these papers are incriminating. They reveal a pronounced motif of willful dishonesty. You are supposed to render a complete accounting of each and every transaction and be held accountable for each misappropriated dollar." Kody's defense lawyer began to open his mouth, but the judge stopped him. "Excuses and arguments will not wash your hands clean. The evidence is overwhelming." Meri, sitting in her confident seat, looked at the judge, then at Kody. Her face was serene but resolute, a sharp contrast to the observable disintegration of the pair once she had trusted them. Absolutely. It was the point at which reality had at last cut through the tapestry of deception. The gallery was in silence, the sole disturbance being Robyn's quiet weeping and the slight shuffling of pages as the evidence presented itself. Each slide supported the story. Kody Brown had financially mismanaged and squandered family funds, laying out a pattern of betrayal that could no longer be dismissed. The tension was intolerable. All eyes were on the judge, anticipating the moment that would alter everything, a verdict that had the power to redefine the Brown family forever. The courtroom atmosphere was heavy as the judge beckoned the first wife into the witness stand. Meri Brown stood up elegantly, her stature exuding quiet confidence. All eyes in the room followed her. This was her moment, an opportunity to finally tell the truth about the betrayal that had shadowed the family for years. "Your Honor," Meri started, her voice firm but bursting with emotion. "I have attempted to stand by Kody, to trust him, and to shelter my family. But the financial deceit, the lies, the manipulation, it has to stop." She stood before the judge with a thick binder full of carefully compiled evidence, receipts, statements, and letters that depicted a harsh picture of Kody's choices. The courtroom saw as she systematically outlined every case of abuse, every hidden expense, and every deliberate omission. Robyn's face went white, tears running freely down her face as the evidence substantiated what she had suspected. The horror of knowing that she had indirectly participated in those transactions was almost more than she could stand. Meri went on, each word striking with accuracy. "This isn't all about money. It is about trust. It is about the security and well-being of our family. It is about justice for every individual who has been harmed by these choices." The judge nodded gravely, taking in each detail. "Miss Brown, your testimony is clear and thorough. It creates a serious violation of fiduciary duty and trust. Mr. Brown will get a chance to respond, but your words will still be an important part of this case record." Then the judge looked towards Kody. "You may now reply to the testimonies and evidence given by the plaintiff." Kody hesitated, visibly shaken. He cleared his throat and began a defensive narrative, attempting to rationalize the financial discrepancies as mistakes or miscommunications. Yet, the weight of Meri's meticulously documented evidence left little room for doubt. His words sounded hollow, and the courtroom sensed it. Robyn, still seated beside him, sobbed quietly. She had once trusted Kody implicitly, and now she faced the devastating reality that their financial mismanagement had reached catastrophic proportions. With each witness, another layer of dishonesty was stripped away, and the denial walls came crashing down quick. The judge observed intently, his face inscrutable but firm. "This court will not be influenced by efforts at downplaying or diversion. The evidence is overwhelming, and the testimonies convincing." As the heart-wrenching testimonies went on, everyone realized that the extent of the betrayal was so much greater than anyone could have imagined. The courtroom was quiet but electric with tension, each of the individuals there experiencing the seriousness of the drama that was unfolding. The drama was laid out in a way that would not only affect money, but reshape relations, trust, and even the bedrock of the Brown family. The courthouse tension became fevered as the judge readied to receive the closing arguments. Each of them appeared to be holding their breath, aware that the next few seconds would dictate everything. Meri stood up again, this time with a fierce spark in her eyes. "Your Honor, this is not merely about figures. This is about responsibility. Kody's actions have inflicted irreparable harm to this family. It is crucial that justice must be dispensed today." Kody fidgeted nervously in his seat. The quiet confidence he used to carry had disappeared, replaced with noticeable nervousness. His attempts to interrupt were greeted with piercing looks from the judge. Each hesitation, each pause only served to accentuate the gravity of the case. Next came the moment everyone had been waiting for. Robyn, who was sitting next to Kody, suddenly buried her hands across her face and wept uncontrollably. The burden of the revelations, the brutal realities, and the irrefutable proof had at last pierced her faide. "Miss Brown," said the judge softly but firmly, "if you require a moment, you can go outside." Robyn's head shook, adamant that she would not move. The cameras took in the naked vulnerability, the pain of a person discovering their unwittingness. It was a scene that would be retold in headlines for weeks, a picture of the devastation that financial infidelity had left behind. The courtroom hushed as the judge went on, facing Kody. "Mr. Brown, are you aware of the gravity of the situation? The testimony that has been given, the evidence that has been heard, and the effect it has had on your family cannot be overlooked." Kody tried to speak, his voice shaking. "Your Honor, I never wanted this to occur. I believed I was making the correct choices." But his words did not sound sincere. The careful evidence and Meri's persistent presentation had left the court with little space for uncertainty. Each word of explanation tended to strengthen the extent of the mismanagement. Meri sat quietly, her face a mixture of resolve and relief. This was the culmination of years of frustration, mistrust, and injustice. She had fought tooth and nail to uncover the truth, and now the court had no option but to agree. The breakdown of Robyn continued, tears streaming freely as she muttered to herself, "How did it come to this?" It was a tragic sight, the disintegration of a well-preserved veneer of control and authority. The judge, showing no emotion, took a breath. "This court does take note of the dramatic impact of Mr. Brown's behavior on his family. We have listened to lengthy testimonies, examined considerable evidence, and weighed the arguments before us. The time has arrived to make a decision that balances accountability with justice." The room went silent. All the camera lenses, all the onlookers, all the loved ones waited, clinging to the edge of their seats. The verdict wouldn't only determine financial culpability, it would redefine relationships, reveal truths long concealed, and change the lives of all those concerned. The courtroom was charged with tension, the sort that makes any creak of chair or rip of paper sound screamingly loud. The judge tilted forward, gaze sweeping the room, then settling on Kody with unflinching determination. After careful review of all evidence, testimonies, and financial records submitted, the judge started, voice calm but authoritative. "This court determines Mr. Kody Brown to be entirely accountable for the embezzlement of funds and fiscal choices made that have gravely damaged the family." Gasps rippled across the room. Robyn's weeping grew louder, her frame shaking as though she could no longer hold the burden of the verdict. Kody went pale, his efforts at calm denials disintegrating before his eyes. The judge went on, "Mr. Brown, you are specifically ordered to return all stolen money over $1.3 million to the rightful family members immediately. In addition, you will be liable for any other monetary damages that may occur as a result of your actions." Meri's lips twitched into a small but victorious smile. All the eyes in the courtroom now saw the vindication she had struggled so long to obtain. The courtroom burst into whispers. Some whispered in horror, others gasped audibly. Even the experienced journalists in the room were taken aback by the harshness of the decision. Robyn, speechless with emotion, buried her face in her hands, shaking her head in shock. She had defended Kody for years, stood by him publicly, yet the truth had now been irrefutable. Her tears told a story words could not: guilt, shame, and an almost crushing realization of her role in the financial turmoil. Kody attempted to speak, his voice barely audible. "Your Honor, I—" The judge raised a hand, silencing him immediately. "This court has spoken. No further interruptions will be tolerated. It is imperative that all orders are executed fully and without delay." Meri's eyes never left Kody for her. This was not only about money, it was about revealing deception, regaining integrity, and holding the system accountable for justice on her behalf, and that of the other family members who were also harmed. Outside the courtroom, cameras recorded every facial expression. Social media would go viral within minutes. Arguments would rage, and headlines would shout about the landmark decision. But inside that room, the moment belonged to Meri, her relentless pursuit of truth finally recognized by the law. As the gavel came down with a sharp, resounding strike, the air seemed to crack with finality. The verdict was clear. The financial deception, the family betrayals, the years of hidden truths, it all culminated in this one decisive ruling. Robyn's breakdown continued, audible sobs mixing with whispers of regret. Kody sat still, the weight of the decision settling in. And Meri stood erect, relief and victory flooding her. The fight in court was done, and justice finally had been done. As the courtroom gradually cleared, the drama of the situation hung in the air like a thick mist. Journalists rushed to record reactions, phones were held up, and microphones were directed at every voice ready to talk. Social media would go wild in minutes, but at the moment things were raw, unvarnished, and undeniable. Meri emerged with a calm but triumphant demeanor. Reporters swarmed her, cameras popping, clamoring for her words. She spoke quietly. "Justice has been served. This wasn't about money. It was about truth and accountability." Kody waited behind, his lawyers providing whispered assurances that sounded hollow in the tense environment. His expression showed shock and anger. Denial was not going to erase the evidence and the judge's harsh comments. For years, he had lived in a cocoon of self-perceived management, but that cocoon had burst in the public eye. Robyn's meltdown became the public's visual story of the day. Journalists recorded her running out of the room, streaming tears as she attempted to grasp both her part and the brutal reality of the judgment of the court. The cameras did not stop. Every step, every tear was filmed, and would make headlines. Even the other sisters looked visibly upset. The family dynamics, always subject to scrutiny, now had an irreparable public accounting. Behind the closed doors of the courthouse, the relationships would have to be repaired, or forever broken. Lawyers huddled in the background talking about appeals and possible monetary fallout, but the courtroom itself had spoken. The judicial system had sided squarely with Meri, and the judgment held not only financial weight, but also a symbolic balance of responsibility. As the news cycle erupted, snippets of the judge's forceful pronouncement streamed on social media. Fans debated, shared, and dissected every moment. Keywords like Kody fraud, Robyn breakdown, and Meri triumph trended instantly, turning the courtroom drama into a viral sensation. For Meri, every tear she had shed, every moment of tension endured, culminated in this triumph. Kody's efforts at holding sway and control had disintegrated in public, revealing fissures in his character and his money management. Outside the courthouse, the saga wasn't a headliner. It was a cultural phenomenon. Fans were analyzing the next steps of the family. Social media exploded with memes, and forums were clogged with chatter about responsibility, family, and secret financial wars. Inside, the emotional and financial implications of the verdict were only just starting. Pays would have to be paid, homes assessed, and long-buried realities faced. The fallout would be public and personal, forever altering the family's narrative that viewers believed they knew. In this installment of the saga, one thing was certain: Meri Brown had not only been a victor in court, but also a beacon of determination and bravery, willing to take on deception and not back down. With the judge's ruling given, the attention quickly turned to the financial ramifications. Kody's finances, once closely held and full of mystery, were now subject to minute examination. Attorneys started sifting through bank records, contracts, and property titles, revealing the complete scope of misappropriated funds and unauthorized expenditures. Meri, bolstered by the court's decision, insisted on immediate compensation. Every dollar that Kody had tried to hide, every purchase that had raised eyebrows, was now up for grabs. The court order left no leeway for delay. Payments were to be made, and fiscal openness became compulsory. Robyn, on the other hand, had the double pressure of public backlash and personal responsibility. Her meltdown in court was more than a breakdown. It was symbolic of the overwhelming burden of being caught up in Kody's scams. She would now have to deal with the fallout from the ruling while trying to save her own reputation and relationship with the family. The other sisters witnessed how the family dynamics completely changed. At one time, a well-rehearsed public image of unity and loyalty existed, but it was now broken. Christine, Janelle, and the rest of the family members expressed relief privately, but the tension of past grievances returned. In private, the family had heated debates regarding budgeting, boundaries, and who could be trusted. Media sources had no hesitation in transforming the monetary debacle into news headlines. Kody's fortune revealed, Robyn reduces to tears as money scandal unfolds, and Meri wins millions in court spilled across the internet. Fans analyzed every step, hypothesized about impending legal wars, and debated the manner in which the family's finances would be revamped. For Kody, pressure was building. His public image was tarnished, and the legal repercussions were immediate. Not only would he have to return misappropriated funds, but he also faced the challenge of regaining credibility, both in court and within his family. Every financial misstep was now magnified, with lawyers and accountants watching his every move. Meri's victory, however, was both symbolic and practical. She had not only exposed the truth, but also secured a level of financial justice that Kody had consistently avoided. Her determination ensured that accountability was no longer optional. Every fraudulent move was now subject to legal remedy. As the family navigated the fallout, viewers at home were captivated. Social media exploded with opinions, fan theories, and debates. Memes circulated, highlighting Robyn's courtroom breakdown, Kody's stunned silence, and Meri's triumphant composure. The tale was no longer one of money. It was now one of power, responsibility, and the dismantling of a lovingly constructed family facade. The conflict between family allegiance and individual honor became the focal point. The verdict compelled every member to reevaluate their allegiances, their duties, and their public images. The court had spoken, but the war for trust, power, and control of the family had just begun. The courtroom drama didn't conclude with the gavel of the judge. Beyond the courtroom, there was raw emotion as family members confronted each other over betrayals of the past. Robyn, still shaken visibly, clung to allies in the family, yet tension hung in every gesture. Her meltdown wasn't solely the result of the verdict. It was a culmination of years of coercion, manipulation, and the fallout from being trapped in Kody's web of secrets. Meri, however, kept a stony face. Her calm during court had made a strong statement, showing the world and her family that not only had she battled for justice, but had emerged victorious. As she addressed reporters following the hearing, her response was cautious but resolute, calling for accountability and justice rather than vengeance. Social media responded in seconds. Followers and fans analyzed every moment of courtroom video, from the tearful looks of Robyn to Kody's combative stance. Hashtags #MeriWins, #SisterWivesDrama, and #CodyExposed trended, blowing the story out to the world. Memes, reaction videos, and commentary flooded sites, constructing an online spectacle around the family's personal troubles. The repercussions didn't stay on the internet. Local media covered the state of the family's mind, detailing how the decision could affect their living situation, monetary futures, and public reputation. Neighbors and members of the community wondered about the long-term effect, while Kody's fans fought over who was really in the right and how on earth he could ever recover from this humiliation. Within the family, there were private showdowns. Blazing arguments exploded about responsibility, loyalty, and the choices that had resulted in the courtroom battle. Some of the sisters were frustrated that Kody had consistently mishandled finances, while others were worried about the media frenzy and how it would affect their children. The judgment served as a catalyst, exonerating long-standing grudges and requiring the acceptance of past errors. Robyn's emotional portrayal attracted both sympathy and backlash. Some viewers empathized with her, recognizing the pressure she faced, while others saw her tears as a reflection of accountability finally catching up. Meanwhile, Kody's attempts to explain or justify his actions fell flat, as public perception increasingly painted him as evasive and self-serving. Amid the chaos, Meri's victory served as a reminder that persistence and preparation could overcome manipulation and deceit. She had not only stood her ground but had also established a precedent for responsibility within the family hierarchy. This was a moment that would be recalled as a turning point in the ongoing drama of the Sister Wives family, where loyalty, power, and truth clashed on a public stage. The tension, though, was far from over. The family's dynamics, already strained by years of complication, were further tested by public attention and legal repercussions. Every choice from here on out would have significance, and every encounter could rekindle old tensions or spark new ones. As the episode ended, audiences were left on tenterhooks, waiting to see what the next installment of this drama had in store. The courtroom might have handed down its judgment, but the emotional, social, and financial aftershocks would go on to reshape the family's narrative for months, possibly years to come. Following the courtroom struggle, the family came back home with a shadow of tension hanging over them. The home, once an emblem of solidarity and common life, now weighed heavily with unsolved discord. Kody went back to his own private quarters. not even looking at Meri and Robyn as the sisters attempted to recoup and make sense of the dramatic happenings of the day. Meri was not deterred. She rounded up the siblings who stood with her and started making pragmatic plans to implement the court's decision. Each dollar owed would need to be repaid, and Meri was adamant justice wouldn't stop at the courtroom door. Her careful attention to detail and planning underlined the stark difference in her deliberative approach compared to Kody's unstructured decisions. Robyn, yet visibly shaken, couldn't reconcile her feelings with the fact of the ruling. She cried in private, asking herself why she had made the decisions that brought her here, and seeing how profoundly Kody's betrayal affected their finances. Her heartache was uncooked, a painful reminder that the fallout from lying is not merely legal, it is intensely personal. In the meantime, Kody was under mounting pressure from relatives to make the money disappear, and to abide by restitution agreements. Every day was filled with new reminders that the court's ruling was final and public opinion was merciless. Friends and extended family had an opinion with advice, criticism, and sympathy offered, while the media coverage made sure the private struggles of the family were kept in the public eye. The sisters started planning how they would approach the restitution process, trying to balance openness with maintaining privacy. Legal teams were consulted, and every financial document was scrutinized to ensure that Meri's victory would be honored fully. The atmosphere was tense but purposeful. No one wanted history to repeat itself. Throughout it all, the children observed the unfolding drama, sensing the stress in the home and the seriousness of the events. Meri made a conscious effort to shield them from unnecessary conflict, reinforcing the importance of fairness and integrity. Robyn, however, struggled with helplessness and guilt, hoping she could reverse previous choices but knowing accountability was unavoidable. The media storm outside raged on unchecked. Every aspect of the verdict, every tearful meltdown, and every calculated move in the family was picked apart online, fueling pressure on Kody to behave responsibly. The sisters were aware that the court decision was merely the first step. The actual test would be working with the family, rebuilding trust, and providing economic restitution. When the day ended, a strategy had been devised. Meri would manage the restitution process, keeping close records of every transaction, while the sisters tried to aid each other and keep the children stable. Robyn, emotionally raw, also promised to cooperate fully, and the family acknowledged that this was a step on the road to reconciliation and accountability. The atmosphere in the house was tense, but hope of a cautious kind did start to dawn. Justice had been done, but the family now had to endure the hard work of living with the verdict and rebuilding their lives under the glare of public scrutiny. All of their interactions, choices, and economic steps from then on would be under observation, both in, house, and on the public opinion stage. Asia's word of the courtroom ruling came out. Social media blew up. Sister Wives fans made their way to websites in large numbers with reactions, memes, and hot takes. The tale soon took over trending topics, with spectators applauding Meri for being brave and condemning Kody for what he had done. Supporters hailed Meri as a symbol of justice and resilience, while critics of Kody voiced outrage at the financial mismanagement and deceit revealed during the trial. The coverage wasn't limited to social media. Entertainment news outlets picked up the story, recapping the shocking courtroom moments and dissecting every detail of the ruling. Headlines highlighted Meri's triumph, Robyn's emotional breakdown, and Kody's visibly strained demeanor. Experts opined on the long-term implications, foreseeing economic consequences and dynamics within families. Channels produced reaction videos, interpreting body language, footage from the courtroom, and even the tone of Kody's voice while testifying. Every move, every eye roll, and every word was picked apart, causing heated arguments on social media. Some identified with Robyn, commiserating with her emotional susceptibility, while others criticized her for remaining part of Kody's money-making schemes. Merchandise and memes emerged, many of which painted Meri as the triumphant party calling out Kody for accountability. Social media trends included hashtags discussing justice, with viewers raving about their highlight moments during the trial and predicting the family's next steps. The internet discussion was relentless, with thousands of postings streaming in hourly. A former cast member and reality television insiders also jumped into the fray, providing commentary and insight into the family history of financial disagreements. Many highlighted that this verdict could serve as a turning point in the narrative of Sister Wives, framing Meri as a central figure in restoring integrity to the family's public image. The public fascination wasn't just about justice, it was about spectacle. Audiences were captivated by the raw emotion displayed in the courtroom. Meri's determined composure, Robyn's tearful vulnerability, and Kody's increasingly defensive posture. Each video posted on social media became viral, supporting the theme of responsibility and personal accountability. The ruling from the court sent shockwaves well beyond the family. Legal professionals debated the question of restitution in high-profile reality television feuds, using Kody's case as an illustration of how courts deal with financial impropriety among celebrities. Finance commentators and lifestyle experts weighed in on the discussion, providing guidance on how to manage finances and prevent future mistakes. In the moment, the family needed to tread this public scrutiny carefully. Every word, every tweet, and every family encounter was dissected, generating stress on keeping credibility and demonstrating accountability. Meri became the stabilizing force that defined integrity and openness as the course of action for the future. The social media traction surrounding the verdict by the close of the week had solidified Meri as the moral compass of the narrative. Fans persisted in voicing their endorsement, hailing her triumph while making guesses about Kody's future actions. The courtroom drama had reached the cultural moment, a narrative that moved beyond reality television to inspire larger discussions about integrity, accountability, and family responsibility in the public sphere. With the courtroom drama over, the Brown family entered a new chapter, one of accountability and emotional accounting. Meri stepped out not only as a winner in court, but as a symbol of strength, clarity, and justice in a family previously long shrouded in secrecy and tension. Her poise and resolve during the trial won over the broad sympathy of the public, making her a focal point in leading the family towards openness and stability. Robyn, still visibly traumatized by the verdict, started the painful process of introspection about her decision and the fallout from it. While some condemned her, others were compassionate, seeing the enormous emotional toll she went through. Her meltdown in court became a turning point, revealing the vulnerable human side of reality television, a reminder that behind the tension were real feelings, real risks, and real relationships. Kody, by contrast, bore the entire brunt of the court's decision. The monetary restitution he was required to provide, alongside the public shame and personal responsibility, was a turning point in his story. He was compelled not just to face the financial ramifications, but also the loss of his reputation and the trust of his family. Experts forecast that this would have an even greater effect on his future ventures and affect his position within the family framework. As the family rebounded, tentative reconciliations took shape. Dialogue formerly dominated by strife and concealment gradually yielded to discourse based on responsibility and regaining trust. Meri's influence played a key role, helping the other family members navigate their emotions and prioritize healing over blame. Beyond the family, the public remained captivated. Fans followed the aftermath closely, sharing updates, opinions, and analysis across social media platforms. Meri's courtroom victory sparked discussions about justice, ethics, and accountability in the realm of reality television. Fans argued over the impact on future seasons, predicting how this historic ruling would transform the Brown family's narrative. The court's ruling also created waves within the wider reality television fraternity. Producers, lawyers, and other reality television celebrities looked on, aware of the precedent being set by the case, and of the strong message being conveyed. One's actions do have consequences even within the entertainment world. Financial mismanagement, deceit, and exploitation could no longer be ignored or swept under the rug without repercussions. As the months passed, the family continued to adapt. Meri's leadership, Robyn's introspection, and Kody's accountability defined a new era for the Browns. The courtroom fight was over, but its teachings remained. Honesty is important, honesty is essential, and the truth will eventually be known. In the end, the tale of Meri Brown's courtroom victory was more than a lurid headline. It was a tale of justice, redemption, and the timeless subtlety of family relationships. Fans cheered her win, sympathized with the emotional strain on Robyn, and followed closely as Kody suffered the repercussions of his decisions. Sister Wives saga had finally reached its climactic turning point, one that would be remembered by viewers long after the gavel was dropped. And with that, the doors to the courtroom closed, the verdict read, and a family, and a fan base, altered forever by what transpired within those walls.